Hey, I'm Sam Clark with Crimson Education, and today we're going to be talking about 5 Common App personal essay red flags. Let's do it. Roll credits. A little bit of a preamble before we get into the red flags. These are just pointers, they are guides. There are no hard and fast rules about this. So we're gonna talk about a bunch of different red flags that our academic experts run into all the time when they're working with students every day, improving their Common Apps to get into the school of their dreams, but they're not hard and fast rules, right? So if you want to talk with a Crimson academic expert today who can help you with your personal essay to get you into the school of your dreams, click one of the links below and you can set up on a free consult with one of them. But let's dive into the red flags, starting with red flag number 1, using your essay as a resume or CV. A major red flag for a lot of personal essays that we see is just rattling off a lot of achievements, talking about a time that you won a debate tournament, talking about all the many things that you do every single weekend or at your internships over the summers, that kind of thing. The thing is that's essentially wasted space. You're not telling a compelling story, and elsewhere in your Common App, you're talking about those extracurricular achievements, you're talking about your jobs, your internships, your volunteer opportunities. So don't use your essay to rattle off achievements that we already see in another part of your Common App, being, of course, the activities list. Speaking of, check out our top 5 Common App activities list quick tips video, which you can check out in the link below. But the personal statement is a time for admissions officers to get to know who you are, to learn a compelling story about you and a time in which you changed and you became the person who you are today, and about who you aspire to be in the future. It's not about rattling off your accomplishments. You do that elsewhere. Don't waste the space. Your resume is elsewhere. Red flag number 2, generic quotes at the top. Webster's Dictionary defines resilience as be the change you want to see in the world, ask not what your country can do for you, etc., etc., etc. All of these generic quotes that you could start your essay with, and trust me, there are hundreds of essays submitted to these universities every single year that start with a generic quote at the top. All of those generic quotes anyone could write at the top. Start your essay with something that only you can write. Put your reader in the situation of whatever story you're trying to tell, and check out one of our upcoming videos about storytelling in your Common App. Or situate the reader in a family tradition of yours, or an experience that you had with a teacher, or some other formative experience or story that you're trying to tell. A generic quote doesn't tell them anything about you, it just tells them about who wrote the quote. Don't start with a generic quote. There are plenty of much more interesting ways to start your essay. Red flag number 3 that we see is trying to sound too academic in an essay. It's really important to remember that your Common App and college application essays are fundamentally different than anything that you're writing in school. It's not a 5-paragraph essay about William Faulkner. It's not a biology report about mitochondria. I don't know, I haven't taken biology in many, many years. It's not academic, so don't try to make it sound like an academic paper using really long, flowery words to try to make you sound particularly erudite or eloquent, including words like erudite or eloquent, unless that's how you actually talk. If that's how you talk and you're trying to convey your personality, then show that. Or if you're doing some sort of creative twist on the essay by putting it in the form of an academic article, that kind of thing. Those are completely legit, but if you're trying to sound like an academic instead of sounding like who you are, then it's not a genuine personal statement, and it doesn't therefore tell the admissions officers who you are, which is the entire point of the essay. Don't try to sound too academic. It's not a 5-paragraph essay for English class. Red flag number 4 is sounding different than the person who's represented in the rest of your application. Now, it's a little tricky knowing exactly what that means, but at Crimson Education, a big thing that we tell our students every single day is that your application as a whole, holistically, should be tonally consistent and thematically consistent. So if your Common App personal statement, your story that you're telling, sounds like a different person than the person who's represented in your supplemental essays and in your activities list, then there's a disconnect there, right? When you read this essay and read all of your other supplements, read your activities list, read your letters of recommendation from your teachers, if they're gonna show those to you, then it should all sound like the same person. So that kind of goes with tip number 3, right? If you're not a flowery writer who tries to publish articles and write short stories, that kind of thing, it's gonna be a little weird if your personal essay sounds different. On the flip side though, we've had students who are really into science, engineering, computer science, who write about their personal statement in a way that shows that that's what their passion is, in a creative form that maybe parallels something that they learned in computer science that they taught themselves, or something that they learned in their chemistry class. Have it be tonally consistent with what we're seeing over the rest of your application. And finally, red flag number 5 is showing achievement rather than growth. This goes a little bit hand in hand with tip number 1, right? Where I said that you shouldn't just be rattling off your resume items, your CV items. You're not trying to show them how accomplished you are. You do that in your activities list. You do that with any other accolades that you've had. But more importantly than that, your personal statement isn't a time to show that you've achieved something spectacular, right? It's a time to show a moment, a story, an experience in your life that caused you to change, that caused you to grow, that caused you to evolve. Colleges, top universities, Ivy Leagues, UCs, Oxford, etc., they're not assuming that they're accepting someone who's perfect, who's at the end of their growth, who's super accomplished all the time. They want to see someone who's willing to change, who has the propensity to change, who can tell you about an experience in which they changed. So it's always better to have an essay where let's say you're a debater, right? I was a high school debater. It's much more compelling to talk about a tournament in which you failed, learned something, and grew, rather than talking about a tournament where you won first place and everything was well and good. So use your essay to talk about your growth, to talk about a time when you went from someone who you used to be to someone who you are now, and where you're aspiring to be someone even better, even more different, even more achieving of your values and of your ethics. So don't tell a story about a time that you achieved, tell a story about a time that you grew. So those are just 5 common app personal statement or personal essay red flags. As I said at the beginning, they're not the end all be all, they're not hard and fast rules, and you know what? You may break some of these rules, right? You might raise one of those flags, but have a fun creative twist on it in your own way. What matters the most is that your personal statement is telling an admissions officer who you are, how you've grown, how you've evolved, what your character is at your core. So keep watching these videos. We're gonna be releasing these every single Friday throughout this entire year. And again, if you wanna talk with an academic expert one-on-one at Crimson Education who works with students every single day, as opposed to me, I just make the videos, then click the link below to sign up for a free consultation with one of our academic experts who can talk to you about writing the perfect personal statement to get into the school of your dreams. I'm Sam Clark with Crimson Education. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, share it with your friends, or keep it to yourself. Whatever you want to do. Have a good one. Bye.